license. No, not license to drive. Crush Course. It's called Crush Course because they love, I don't know, dating guys at the beach prom or something.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Donkey Konga is technically a speedrun, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, so you'd say, I mean, I don't want to, some people think this is a negative word. I don't think it is, though. It's kind of, you're a meme game speedrunner, maybe?
Some of them. It's less that it's a meme game and more that it's just something I find entertaining.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if you look at your GDQ history, you've had 3 runs. They're all kind of these kind of not popular. I would say they're not very mainstream games for sure. Crowtail, Donkey Kong 5, and Pepsi Man. What kind of was this when you started speedrunning? Did it go hand in hand with you choosing these kind of unique games?
So when I started speedrunning, the first game I actually speedran was one that I routed myself. And that was actually Microprose's Magic the Gathering for old PC, which is nothing at all like anything I speedrun now. And that sort of roots a bit into my history of getting into the speedrunning scene, as I was actually a big Magic the Gathering streamer before I moved towards speedrunning. So I actually speedran a game that I was very familiar with, rather than maybe more of like a popular speedrun game.
Okay, so you were a Magic Gathering speedrunner. That's a way different speedrun, card game. So what kind of made you? What was the switch that made you say, "Hey, I want to try this out"?
The game that actually made me switch over to sort of less of like a card game and more of standard speedrunning was actually Caro Blaster, and that was actually because I was watching a lot of Cave Story speedruns at the time, and Caro Blaster was a game made by Studio Pixel, which is sort of like a cutesy pixel platformer game. Kind of like Cave Story, actually. Or Crowtail, which is why I got into Crowtail. And Caro Blaster is just a really fun platformer. But it's one of those games that I realized I have issues with my hands as well, which I'm assuming a lot of speedrunners do. Where a game like Caro Blaster requires a lot of button mashing for a large amount of time. So a game like that just took me a long time to realize that I can't really speedrun this because my hands just can't keep up with it. So I started moving towards more shorter games or silly games rather than long button mashing type of games.
That makes sense. And, so Magic the Gathering, though, is streaming that it's a whole different animal in speedrunning, obviously. It's a different world, kind of, right? And I think it takes a lot of like guts to stream Magic the Gathering, right? Because everyone is watching everything you do. If you make a mistake, everyone lets you know about it for sure. Were you kind of, I don't know how, like what kind of level did you attain there? Were you kind of a known streamer on Magic the Gathering, or what was your kind of level of Magic the Gathering playing?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Magic the Gathering was a game I've been playing since I was like 8. So 20 some odd years of playing that game. And I was actually doing video content for various websites before I got into streaming. I actually thought streaming was going to be a fad and, 3-hour long boring videos was the future.
Okay.
So I didn't get into streaming until a little bit late. Well, sort of late. It was like a year or two after Twitch kind of started anyway. But when I got into Magic streaming, I was at maybe like a 300, 400 viewer stream on average, which is pretty decent.
Yeah. Sure.
But there's something about the way that the communities differ when you're talking about a card game as opposed to a video game. For instance, card game players really, really want to backseat because they're always talking about different plays. And sometimes, obviously, the play doesn't matter because you won anyway. But they're very proactive in telling you what you did wrong and why it's wrong without actually looking at that and their reasoning. So, like, that's wrong because I wanted to do this. Whereas when you're talking about a speedrunner, it's like, it's a lot more passive watching them, hopefully not fail at their speedrun. But you're watching it more for entertainment than for intrinsically talking about strategy.
Yeah, it seems like people that watch card games are kind of trying to learn how to play the game better.
Yeah.
But you're watching a speedrun, you're just watching someone, okay, cool, I want to see how fast he can do it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's a whole wildly different audience. And the interesting thing about that, too, is I feel like a card game audience doesn't mesh with really any audience anywhere else on Twitch. Somebody who's watching, let's say, Hearthstone exclusively, is not going to care about other games that aren't Hearthstone, necessarily. They're there to watch that one game and get good at it. And if somebody's streaming Super Mario 64, they're like, well, I don't really care about that. I want to get good at Hearthstone. So they're going to watch that. Yeah. So it's a totally different audience, which is interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And, if you had these 300, 400 viewers, it's a serious viewership. So when you make a switch, sometimes viewerships are very fickle on Twitch. And as people in the past on the show have told me, Darbian and stuff, when he plays any other game, he gets it's a big outcry for, why are you playing another game? How dare you not play Mario? Did you have any of that reaction when you started playing not Magic the Gathering?
Oh, yeah, I got that really bad. I went from... So I used to stream Magic religiously. That was the only game I would stream. Which is kind of bad because their client's really terrible and there's a lot of downtime. So it's actually kind of boring from a streaming perspective. So what I would do is I would play video games in between rounds because there was just nothing to do. And then that eventually evolved into me playing games other than Magic on stream. But then I would go from like a 400 viewer Magic stream to a 3 viewer non-Magic stream. Because like the Magic players only want to watch Magic. And if they if you show up on their stream saying I'm playing Telltales of the Walking Dead, they'll be like, well, that sucks. I'm going to go to this other Magic stream.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so you started from zero. Man.
Yeah, there's a lot to... It's interesting. There's a lot of pressure when you're at that type of level. Because we're at like a 300, 400 viewer stream. That's not too far off from, let's say, an 800 to 1,000 viewer stream. So you're constantly at a pressure to sort of keep streaming the same thing and working on that one thing. And if you don't, your audience often... especially if they're built around only one thing, a game anyways, rather than the actual streamer, they will just revolt and go somewhere else.
Yeah, we've seen a few cases of that. Yeah.
I got that really bad. And I decided that it was more important for me to play games that I enjoy and speedrun than it was to try and keep a viewership for something I wasn't really enjoying.
That's probably the right move to do, and we've seen that happen a lot. As when you you kind of get big on Twitch with one game, and then you make a change, and then the pitchforks come out, and then if they pitchfork and go somewhere else, so it's got to be intimidating.
I've been kind of rebuilding for the last year and a half, actually, on my stream, moving towards more retro gaming and speedruns than card games. And it is essentially just starting from scratch, especially since you don't really retain any viewership for that one specific game. Because those viewers are only going to watch that one game.
Yeah, if you look at your history, at the Boyks history, you can see you're very much a variety streamer now.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I'm more of like a macaw now.
And, I think it's a pretty common fact now. Variety streamer is the longer road to grow a stream, correct?
That's my belief, for sure. It's definitely really hard, but the payoff is really good if you get there. So
let's talk about the Pepsi. Let's go to the Pepsi Man, the GDQ kind of. Was Pepsi Man? What was your first brush with Pepsi Man? How did you find this game?
Sure. So the first time I saw Pepsi Man, I think was a random YouTube video that was just like, hey, look at this dumb video game. And then they played it for like 13 minutes to get ad revenue. And I want to say that was back in like 2013. So I decided, hey, I'm going to play this in between rounds of Magic because it looks really dumb and I think I will enjoy it. So I ended up just sort of playing it on stream a couple times. And it turns out that a bunch of my friends that were on stream as well decided that we wanted to race the game. So I actually got a bunch of my friends and myself to sign up for Speedruns Live, to actually do live races on the website with that. And we actually thought that the game was too hard to speedrun race in full, so we only raced half of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, so we played the game with training wheels for our first, 20 or 30 races.